The sharp class. All of them possess sharp body parts. Most can fire extreme sharp poisonous projectiles from their bodies, which can quickly be regenerated. These dragons are vain, prideful, adored being stroked. Well, generally made a fuss of really. They especially love compliments due to their nature. And today I'm going to be looking at why these specific set of dragons are sharp class, and why some are not. Not gonna lie, this description needs to be updated as it barely matches any of the dragons still in the class, and especially the dragon that fits it the most is no longer in it. But alas, I'll try my best. Sharp body parts, fire them / potentially poisonous, vain and prideful, love being made a fuss of. Let's go. The first category, and by far the largest, are the cutters. Ones who like to chip chop or hack and slash for various reasons. For instance, and one of the most well-known sharp class dragons, the Razorwhip. With a body of metal-like scales, these dragons can use their tails to cut through almost anything. Wood, rock, little isn't affected by these strikes.
Can a Viking get some privacy?
Which makes sense when you see how impressive their strength is, regularly resisting multiple attacks, and flinging a whole tree at Hiccup at one point. Good thing Toothless was on the ball, otherwise this would have been a very abrupt end to the franchise.
Look out!
May the Valkyries welcome you.
Oh, and who can forget that babies are able to lift entire humans, and Snotlout.
Ah!
Oh, sicky! The primary way they do these achievements is through their tail. It being prehensile allows objects to be picked up, grasped and flung, as well as shoot sharp barbed spines with great accuracy, but they are not poisonous. Despite this, Fishleg says that their tears could be toxic, and there's other descriptions saying that their breath could be potentially as well, although we haven't seen any of this. I like the idea that the Razorwhips have toxins in the body, like other sharp class dragons, but due to the metallic-like scales, it can only secrete through unusual methods. In addition to high strength, they also supplement their cutting abilities with high speed. We've seen Gnasher hold her own against Toothless at one point. Oh, and there's an individual from Razorwhip called Sawtooth, who can curl up into a ball and roll into entire enemies. I also want to look at these dragons' firepower, as we can see how this tracks with others to see if there's a trend. In all honesty, this aspect is the most irrelevant, but it's particularly unique, so let's have a look. A whitish bluish flame, so insanely hot fire. Okay, I'm just gonna say it, this is an added 2.0, but without any of the tracking abilities. These dragons are still really sick. Oh, and lastly, are they vain and prideful? It's really subjective. We see Gnasher through a whole host of emotions, so it's really hard to say, but she does love being scrubbed. The babies like to be nuzzled, that's kind of it. Some descriptions call them very aggressive and very dangerous, which tracks with their protective nature, especially with males eating their own offspring. But other than that, this is the most sharp class dragon currently in this listing, so a good basis for others. Next is a classic, the Timberjack. Annoyingly, this dragon has only been reserved for background cameos, and thus, despite being in the franchise for a long time, there is little information about it. But the information we do know, yeah, it's very clearly sharp. The dragon loves to chop down forests using their razor sharp wings. The reason why they do this is to collect timbers and other materials for their nests. And while resting, they use their wings like pitch tents to protect themselves, as they can be vulnerable on land, but they do offer warmth and protection for smaller dragons, and sometimes Vikings if it likes you. Their wings can also act like shields, blocking any kind of fire attacks. So another sharp class dragon, quite protective in nature. They are graceful gliders flying over oceans, migrating from island to island with no sign of fatigue. So coupled with their surprising speed and maneuverability from the lack of legs, you wouldn't want to be on the bad side of this dragon, which could be temperamental at the best of times. They are quite sensitive animals, preferring quiet and calmness, but when attacked, betrayed or offended, they can quickly turn those wings from shelter to guillotine. If you're able to scratch its back, however, it will be your friend for life. Cute. Lastly, the firepower is oil-based, used to start fires from the kindle it collects, being slightly more viscous and hotter than the average firepower. Honestly, not too much of this dragon fits into the traditional description of the sharp class, but due to the main ability it has, it very much fits in. Just like this impulsive and reckless sharp class. The Hackatoo. The Hacker what? The hack at the wood it enjoys chopping down. Yes, just like the Timberjack, the Hackatoo slices through the timber, but instead of wings, it's an axe-like snout. And funny enough, sometimes it gets stuck in the tree. Oh, it's so adorable. In terms of sharp class attributes, that's kind of it. The nature of this dragon, we've said before, it has no fire in parts or venom. The firepower is just a normal fireball, like a Rumblehorn's, but in quick succession before it needs to recharge. But not to be Hackatoo, but couldn't more or less every dragon do this? Noticeably, the Hackatoo more legs. I'm really reaching for these puns. Which could help with the axe chopping for more leverage and stability. But on the different side of the same coin, with that being the next dragon using its tail instead of its face, the Devilish Dervish. This dragon is quoted to be unruly and wild in nature, a dragon considered to be extremely hard to train. But if you're up for the challenge, you can find it in the woods. Follow the path of the torn down trees and you'll find it. They like to gather piles of timber to sleep on. These guys are also fast flyers and use their scythe-like tail to slice through ships like yak's butter. Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with this guy. Additionally, their firepower is plain, just orange flames, so nothing really notable. And honestly, that's it. It's kind of a reverse Hackatoo, but scarier. Last in the category is the Shivertooth. This frosty boy is oddly enough a prankster, enjoying playing in the snow. But this can have a sinister side to it, as there has been evidence from both Volker and the twins on separate occasions indulging in the mischievous personality of the Shivertooth. I found that the dragon followed them back home. Mixed with their camouflage blending into the snowy environment, perhaps the dragon likes to stalk or distract their opponents before an attack. Being intelligent creatures in both pranks and combat supports this theory. But if you are attacked, I wouldn't fancy your chances. The Shivertooths are said to have the sharpest claws out of any dragon, and have cutting edge scales from the tip of their snout to the end of their tail. Amazing for both offense and defense. In addition, they shoot ice, like the Woolly Howl and the Snow Wraith. And speaking of, they are akin to the speed of one as well. So, although their behaviour and blast isn't like any other Sharp Class dragon, they have the speed and most importantly, the serration of one. The next category are the Jabbers, ones who tend to poke at their opponents, either physically or from a distance. For example, the Gnashers. Sneaky, opportunistic hunters, targeting weakened dragons.
The most dangerous thing about Gnashers is their ability to plan and communicate with each other to outsmart their quarry. They circle above their injured prey like carrion birds.
Despite their devilish looks, they just fulfill an ecological niche necessary for the ecosystem. So how do they hunt their prey? By shooting their teeth. Like sharks, they can regenerate their teeth, but at a much faster rate. In games, they are shown to have a traditional firepower as well, either an orange or green fireball. However, it predominantly uses its teeth darts, as it requires less energy and is more accurate. Oddly enough, they are immune to the Slitherwing's venom, perhaps suggesting toxins within their own body. It would be cool if they were like Komodo dragons, only needing a bite to slowly weaken their prey over time to finish them off. But for the Gnashers, it would be in the teeth they fire, and is only strong enough to finish off a weakened animal. As well as being fast and agile dragons, they can swiftly ambush prey with incredible teamwork and communication skills, through having an alpha of the pack. Much like Night Terrors and the next dragon we're talking about, the Speed Stinger. The velociraptors of the dragon world. They are fast, aggressive, and intelligent. They use coordinated attacks moving in packs of dozens at a time, all led by their lead Speed Stinger. And as Fishlugs once said,
One drop of their venom can paralyze a human or dragon in an instant.
out of all the dragons on this list, these are the fastest and the deadliest of all. Despite this, they do have a vulnerable side. They depend on their pack, could easily struggle to survive if dramatically hurt, and are trainable, with enough patience and time, and a lot of Speed Stinger anti-venom. Oh, they do have an acid blast as well, shown in School of Dragons, but that's only there. Whether or not you count this is up to you. I do think they do have it, but they don't use it much as it doesn't work well with their hunting strategies, but as a desperate move perhaps it becomes useful. Honestly, why they are sharp is quite easy. Speedy, has venom, can jab prey. There's even a group that can run across the ocean. We could go into much more detail, but for the sake of the video, it isn't necessary. But wait until there's an individual video on these guys. There is quite a bit of interesting stuff. But for now, we'll go to the next dragon. One that originated in the live spectacular and then implemented into the games. The Egg Biter. The adults are rarely seen, but the babies are well known from right out the shell to bite the first thing it sees. I guess this counts as a jab or a penetrative attack, viciously biting an opponent. I mean, they do have impeccable jaw strength and can even chomp through metal. The firepower is blue fire, so another one showing hot flames. And looking at the design of the adults closer, they do seem to have a lot of spikes going on. If they utilise them or not has yet to be seen. Speaking of yet to be seen, is the possible sharp class characteristics of this next category, the Normiers. Yeah, the rhyming scheme didn't work for this one, but this is a group that is so plain. The very fact that they have sharp claws or strong teeth with nothing else is the only reason why they are in the sharp class. Like the Windstriker. This dragon is more known for dive bombing and cutting through the air, which you could argue is a strike class thing, but an individual called Snaggletooth literally headbutts enemies by doing this, especially with that large nasal horn on their head. I could really see this spoiling an opponent's weekend. In terms of firepower, this only supports their dive bombing. They have superheated air. Other than setting foes ablaze, which is just a weaker fire breath to be honest, the warm air rises, lifting the dragon up quickly. This isn't technically stated specifically, but this could be a very logical conclusion to make. Although in Vulcan's Sanctuary they do look like they have a normal fire, helping it illuminate the cave. Honestly, I prefer the former, as it makes the dragon a little bit more unique. But in terms of the class placement, I guess sharp class is the best. The nasal horn does a lot of heavy lifting. Similarly, the Thornridge as well has this class placement from just the horns on its head, as sadly this dragon has nothing else going for it. Its average is strength and pretty good stamina, but none of these are class specific things really. It doesn't even have an interesting firepower, it's just an orange flame, with some individuals apparently having thick streams with yellowish green fire. Wow, oh, how unique. They're even shy too, preferring to stay at the back of the pack, although sometimes they do go in to help fellow dragons. So they could be fairly friendly as well, but that's literally it. Other than the funky horns, this couldn't be more of a generic dragon species, so I guess sharp. But do you know what I guess isn't sharp class? The last category on this list, the not sharp class dragons. Yeah, these dragons have no relation to anything in the descriptions or patterns we've discovered, and have stronger indications to other classes, such as the Raincutter. These dragons love hunting on rainy days. They eat wiggly worms in the fresh soil, digging them up using their chins. And apparently their firepower isn't affected by the rain at all, although depending on the game, it could be different. In School of Dragons, and even in Rise of Berg in the description and the defend game mode, they have fireballs, and even smoke coming out of their nose. But in the Brawl game mode, it can also launch water blasts, both in streams and bubble forms. This could be interpreted as inconsistencies, but I'd like to see it as proof of how these dragons develop a new firepower, especially in terms of evolution. For example, the water blast from the Raincutter has a striking similarity to the methodology of the Skuldron, and even looking at their features, they do look quite similar, leaving me with theories of them potentially having a common ancestor. This is going to be a topic for another time, which I'm very excited to share. It's been in the work for over a year, but it's still going to be ages until you see anything of it, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, back on topic. Why is the Raincutter not sharp class? The only references I can find for the sharp features of this dragon are the fun fact social media posts for the School of Dragons, with it stating a couple of times they have razor sharp fins, cutting through the Raincutter, what? But equally, if not more, there are many references to the wet and frigid environment that it enjoys being in. To be honest, I sat on the fence for a while with this dragon, before thinking it suits the title class best. Because in addition, there is an individual called Ice Cutter, who seeks out the coldest water and likes to reside in frigid pools, suggesting that the Raincutters could like water more than we think. So, I'm now fairly confident with this one. Unlike the Scuttleclaw, because it's just so plain.
Underneath their cuteness, Scuttleclaws are little troublemakers just waiting to cause more mischief. Baby Scuttleclaws are wild, hyperactive powerhouses who are extremely difficult to control, but hard-working when they put their minds to it.
So, a ADHD dragon. How relatable. But in terms of sharp abilities, to be fair, we haven't seen any adults in media apart from the games, which don't give us much. They have a greenish, orangey flame, and the babies are said to have flammable drool. Again, we have yet to see this. They seem to have strong jaws, but that's kind of subjective from the evidence. They are relatively fast flyers, but that's it. Some Scuttleclaws have a higher than average body temperature that require them to cool off by rolling around in the mud or icy puddles of slush. Having a couple of Stoker-like abilities and being very hyperactive with no significant sharp abilities suggests it shouldn't be the sharp class at the very least. But one I know for sure shouldn't be a sharp class dragon is the Stormcutter, or should I say Storm Smeller, because there isn't any cussing going on, but a lot of smelling, although I understand why it's not called Storm Smeller. It's a very bad name. But these guys should definitely be a tracker class. Some woodland Stormcutters are said to be able to detect subtle scents and shifts in the atmosphere, allowing them to sense the intent of the approaching Viking and dragons. I swear I said this verbatim about the Gnasher or the Sniffle Hunch. Also, Cloudjumper didn't fall for the sedative effects of Nepethane, I think that's how you pronounce it, perhaps smelling the chemical in the water, alongside Skullcrusher and Stormfly. You know, both tracker class dragons. It's debatable if he did sense it, it's something more I guess. Also, you could interpret the rotating head as a tracking ability as well. Owls do this as they have fixed eye sockets because they don't have eyeballs, but cubes. It looks weird. This allows them to have absolutely superb vision. Perhaps this is the reason why Stormcutters have this, or simply it helps see more when flying still. Either way, it helps with tracking. And what makes this argument even more solid is that there's nothing mentioned about how sharp they are. Cutting through stuff? Nada. The only thing is in the School of Dragons description.
This sharp class dragon can dart through the skies swiftly and stealthily.
Which you could argue for many other dragons, or if you want to count this as evidence, then you'll need to include the Razorwhip one as well.
Flying on 4 wings, the Stormcutter carves spirals in the sky and shoots fiery arcs of destruction at its adversaries.
Which, in all honesty, kinda sounds Stokerish, especially once you see it. That's a lot of fire! However, this isn't me discrediting them at all. They are really cool dragons, especially with their X-Wings, no, not the Star Wars spaceships, that allow them for additional maneuverability. In terms of personality, they tend to like keeping to themselves, whilst being proud and intelligent creatures as well. They can also be seen as sweet at times, especially if they're curious. So some personality traits like the sharp classes, but that's it. If the Deadly Nazzers were tracking enough to move classes, then this would also apply to the Stormcutters. Yeah, a lot of these sharp class dragons are quite basic. Honestly, the very fact that dragons have teeth and claws could cement them into this class if they have no significant other abilities. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. TTFN, ta-ta for now.